So at this time, I will go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Omali Yeshitela, chairman of the African Socialist International and of the African People's Socialist Party, as well as the Black is Back Coalition. From the day he tore down the racist mural from the City Hall in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1966, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has never stopped fighting for liberation for African people everywhere. In the heat of revolutionary struggle and during years in prison for his political work, Chairman Omali developed the theory of African internationalism that understands the world through the eyes of the African working class. In 1968, Chairman Yeshitela founded the Burning Spear newspaper, which is still published today. The chairman has authored numerous articles, pamphlets, and books. He has led countless campaigns in the name of the African working class, including the Community Control of Housing Initiative that won 22,000 votes in Oakland, California in 1984, and the campaign that freed Desi Woods, an African woman imprisoned for killing a white attempted rapist with his own gun. In 1996, the chairman mobilized a community fight back following the rebellion sparked by the police murder of 17-year-old Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg. Chairman Omali made reparations a household word with the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People, which was held in Brooklyn, New York in 1982, finding that African people are owed $4.1 trillion for stolen labor in the US alone. The chairman founded the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement in 1991 as a revolutionary mass organization to defend the democratic rights of the African working class. The party also launched Black Star Industries, bringing all of the economic development institutions of the party under one umbrella, creating partnerships with community members. Today, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, as a leader of the African Socialist International, speaks to his growing base around the world and leads the worldwide movement for liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. So without further ado, the chairman could not make it today, but we will be graced with an audio of a speech that will take about 35 minutes. So there will be a question and answer segment coming up. So if you are in the room or you're watching via Zoom, take any notes. And then, yes, we will transition into this audio. Uhuru.
The U.S. government, which is a colonial government, which means that it's an illegitimate relationship that's been imposed on African people at gunpoint, which means that it is a part of a process, a mode of production that came into existence through white European colonial domination of the rest of the world and extraction of human and material value, resources from us. And it's a parasitic world economy that everybody on the planet is locked into, including white people who don't know and understand, wait, let me retreat, who in most instances are ignorant of their position, their relationship to a colonial mode of production. The U.S. government, which is a colonial government, which means that it's an illegitimate relationship that's been imposed on African people at gunpoint, which means that it is a part of a process, a mode of production that came into existence through white European colonial domination of the rest of the world and extraction of human and material value, resources from us. And it's a parasitic world economy that everybody on the planet is locked into, including white people who don't know and understand, wait, let me retreat, who in most instances are ignorant of their position, their relationship to a colonial mode of production. They, like most people, have a very limited understanding of they know that often that they have or don't have jobs, and they can be convinced easily that Africans and so-called illegals are responsible one way or the other for that, et cetera. But in terms of recognizing the existence of a mode of production a process, a system within which all human life is produced and reproduced. Most people do not understand that, but we do. So there is this colonial mode of production that we have recognized for a very long time and have been struggling against for a very long time. And we've been fighting against this colonial mode of production from the inception of the African People's Socialist Party itself. Our history as a party began as within that process of fighting against colonialism. And as a party, we had determined a long time ago that we were going to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. We didn't say we were going to complete the Black Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. We said the Black Revolution. And revolution presupposes the change in social system. It presupposes not like people like to talk about change, but it's not just change. When a little caterpillar grows into a bigger caterpillar, that's change. When a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, that's development. That's what we're fighting for, is development, not just change. And we recognize that change is a part of the process of development, but development is what we're looking for. So anyway, that's what we have been fighting for. The party came into existence, not, as I said, fighting for completing the fight for civil rights or something to that effect. We took it upon ourselves, the responsibility to capture leadership of the civil rights or democratic struggle of African people in this country, so that we gave it a revolutionary character in terms of it being connected to the party and to a greater end than just civil rights itself. The civil rights thing is a reformist thing. It is a concept of democracy, which we will talk about moving forward, which is just a form of the state. Somebody said, well, this is not democracy. It is democracy. It's colonial democracy. To say it's democracy is not to brag about what it is, because democracy for whom? It is a colonial democracy. And we are fighting against democracy in the sense that we are fighting against this colonial mode of production. So anyway, what I want to do now is I just wanted to open that up because we have a certain kind of responsibility. And we came into existence with that responsibility. We came into existence off a part of a trajectory, did not start with the founding of the party. It started earlier than that in terms of the whole struggle against colonialism. That's what the Black Panther Party was about. That's what the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was about. That's what happened when we said Black Power in the middle of a movement for integrating into American society. When the call for Black Power emerged, that was a development of our movement. And so we're not just trying to integrate into the system as what the liberal African petty bourgeoisie was involved in. It wanted to be able to integrate into the system because it saw integrating into the system as a means of achieving access to the benefit of a capitalist society that white people enjoy. That's not what we're looking for. Because the capitalist society that white people enjoy comes at the expense of Africans and other peoples around the world, comes at the expense of people living in reservations who sometimes just get out of prison and stuck, like Leonard Peltier and many people who have been stuck in prisons. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And so now we have to move forward, and we still are preparing for the plenary. And And we should show its relevance here. We should show its relevance in part because it's not about Trump. It really ain't about Trump. This is something that's been a problem for the ruling class for a while now. And Trump has been the one who has really pushed the way forward. So this is from May 1989 issue of the Burning Spear. And it was published in the book Black Power Since the 60s. On April 10th, 1989, the U.S. capitalist white power government revealed the newly unfolding form of the government's counterinsurgency against our people's just struggle for freedom and repossession of the material wealth stolen from us by 400 years of slavery and foreign domination. I want to point out that we say that we talk about the newly unfolding form. And say we don't take a cookie cutter approach to stuff. We watch the development of the system itself and how it's acting today. And how it's represented today and what we have to do. April 10th was the day that William J. Bennett, the National Drug Policy Director, or drug czar, flanked by Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Jack Kemp and Richard Thornburgh, U.S. Attorney General, outlined an incredible state of martial law for Washington, D.C. That is public consolidation of a general campaign directed toward the domestically colonized African population. Bennett's plan, which effectively nullified the election of the sleazy neo-colonialist Marion Barry administration and returned the DC government to direct white control, calls for the deployment in Washington, D.C., of a so-called Metropolitan Area Task Force consisting of representatives from the Drug Enforcement Administration, FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, Department of Defense, U.S. Attorney's Office, Internal Revenue Service, Immigration and Naturalization Service, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, U.S. Customs Service, Park Police, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, and state and local police agencies from Maryland and Virginia. This is then the 30-year, the ability of them to brag about. There has been a decrease in crime. There has, for 30 years, is because of this that happened a little more than 30 years ago, that they put all this stuff to for the oppression of African people there in Washington, D.C. The immediate effect of Bennett's action was a legal coup d'etat as a means of countering one profound security problem for world capitalism led by U.S. imperialism, namely the seat of international white power, the U.S. Capitol, sitting in the middle of a population that is 70% African and extremely hostile toward the U.S. colonial government and its domestic and foreign policy. And I would remind people here who may find that, a stretch of the imagination or what have you, that when they murdered Martin Luther King, the glaring example of the insecurity of the Capitol was brought into full view when they had to put tanks around the White House because of the uprising of African people in Washington, D.C. So you have this state capitol, the headquarters of U.S. white power, of world white power, in a hostile in the middle of a hostile African population. In a sense, Bennett's attack on African people in Washington, D.C. is testimony to the growing limitations of neocolonialism as the main strategy for U.S. imperialism in its war against African people. The fact is that the authority of the black puppet regime, established by white power in cities throughout the U.S., is wearing thin for the millions of oppressed and literally starving African working and poor people. The neo-colonialism, more appropriately called Negro colonialism by some party members, became a chief component of the counterinsurgency against our struggle following the defeat of the Black Revolution of the 60s. Hundreds and thousands of well-trained, generally educated individuals who together make up the worst kind of social scum were recruited to the service of white power in the form of black elected officials, administrators, and policy initiators such as civil rights groups and personalities. Their job was to act as political covers for white power by allowing it to assert itself against our people through themselves or their programs. For a while it worked, but after the bombing of the African community in Philadelphia by African Mayor Wilson Goode, and the years of self-serving lick-spittle buffoonery by the best-known African men and women throughout the U.S., most of whom were elected officials, after the second time around for the Jesse Jackson show, after 20 years of Uncle Tomism and mass starvation, growing homelessness and violence, the black petty bourgeois neocolonialists are hard-pressed to control our increasingly restless revolutionary population. Plus, although the Barry regime has proved over and over to be a totally servile, butt-kissing neocolonialist regime, no different from any of the others, the colonial white ruling class is always faced with the possibility that an oppressed African population, growing more conscious of its place and historical mission, will itself overthrow these puppets. There is no doubt that Bennett's action in DC did contain an element of the preemptive strike to dampen the possibility of legal takeover by Africans through the achievement of home rule or statehood, and to prevent the possibility of a hostile takeover by an increasingly well-armed, though currently disorganized and leaderless, impoverished African working class. But while Bennett's press conference dealt mainly with Washington, D.C., he was really pulling together a counterinsurgency program to be initiated against our people throughout the U.S. Much of what Bennett outlined has actually been implemented or talked about in various cities and states throughout the U.S. The fact is that the so-called war on drugs represents another critical component of the U.S. counterinsurgency against our people. The war on drugs is actually the U.S. military response to the drug economy that the U.S. white rulers have imposed on our starving community. The illegal drug economy, which employs millions of youthful African workers as penny ante players in $100 billion white-controlled economy, is headed up by the same white rulers who head up the legal white-controlled capitalist economy. The idea that some African youth living in a state of animal-like colonial existence in the housing projects of the U.S. control a $100 billion economy should be laughable. But it's not laughable. White people half believe it. The other half, disbelief, is generally overcome by white fear of our just black revolution. The black petty bourgeoisie has deserted, and the revolutionary majority of our people is disorganized. Bennett's job as drug czar, a job without cabinet status, a typical intelligence cover to provide a measure of deniability for George Herbert Walker Bush, the ex-CIA agent, president, who as vice president was the first drug czar, is essentially designed to give political direction and coherence to the war against black people that since 1981 has expended more than $20 billion in the so-called war on drugs alone. When you talk about this cabinet positions or this role without being cabinet, that's what we just saw with Elon Musk and what have you. So they don't have to really be responsible in a certain way for that. Since the war against African people has become popularized as a war against drugs, 58 different federal offices, since the war against African people has become popularized as a war against drugs, 58 different federal offices have been created to engage in the battle. Various federal agencies have been locked in fierce contention to outdo each other in targeting our people for oppression. The war on drugs has provided the political justification for the public abrogation of all the national democratic rights won by our people during this last period of struggle. Even before Bennett's appointment, special organizations of ski mask wearing police terrorists, armed with automatic weapons and in total disregard for law, rule without regard for which is defined as dictatorship, stalk and violently disrespect our working class communities throughout the U.S. with near total impunity. And although Bennett claims to have assumed armed authority over Washington, D.C., because of the local government's unwillingness to exert itself effectively in the war against Black people, the truth is that even without any nudging from Bennett and the federal colonial government, Marion Barry has proved as willing to carry out the will of white power in D.C. as Mobutu in Zaire or Duarte was in El Salvador. The D.C. City Council has initiated a curfew that would prohibit African youth from being in public from 11 p.m. until 6 a.m. on weekdays and from midnight to 6 a.m. on weekends. Only exemptions would be for those returning from work or attending events at locations registered with the mayor's office. Parents of detained youths are subject to fines of up to $300. The D.C. City Council has also initiated an anti-loitering bill with similar implications for Black people. Moreover, over the last 2.5 years, the D.C. Police Department made 46,000 so-called drug-related arrests, with equivalent of 21 drug-related arrests for each 1,000 residents last year. Its police department, when the 3,000 special police are counted, works out to more than 11 for every 1,000 residents, compared to most cities, which have about 2 per 1,000 residents. Shortly before Bennett's plan, which will cost $70 to $80 million to implement, Barry appeared before the U.S. Colonial Congress to ask for $102 million that would have hired another 800 policemen, provided snitch rewards of up to $1 million, and added 1,500 more prison spaces, where Bennett's plan only calls for an immediate 250 spaces. It is not so much that Bennett's plan is tougher than that of Barry, or many of the existing efforts made against our people in different cities by different local governments throughout the U.S. What Bennett is doing is pulling together and giving political direction and coherence to an attack on our people, which until recently has been without comprehensive centralized leadership that can subordinate all local and regional efforts to the strategic needs of the U.S. federal counterinsurgency. So that was something that was written in 1989. And so we talk about Trump and act like this is some kind of special event of terror that's initiated by Trump. This was 1989. This was extraordinary. And all of the different agencies, all the different police organizations, FBI, everybody involved in this war against the African population.
Uhuru. Uhuru is a Swahili word that means freedom.
Uhuru, we're experiencing some technical difficulties on Zoom, so just hang tight.
Because we do create resources that stays in our health. Has been for years in this nation. History that the resources that we can buildings,
I need. It's. Oh, I need to be in front of your computer.
Thank you very, very, very. You know,
Now you're.
Tell him, yeah.
It was a wake-up call for me, because I really don't believe we have a problem with race. I think we got a problem with racism and colonialism, that is the haves against the have-nots. Because what I found out, that is people that look like me, that's been handpicked and paid to represent me, that's not for me.
Dialogue with people who can affect change. Just for us to be talking in circles, and no. Let's have tangibles, districts, cities that we can see that our money built. Here in America, in the Caribbean, and Africa. $10, $9 a month from everybody in the same pool adds up. It adds up, and we may need to have our 16 to 18-year-old sons and daughters go to rites of passages, go to some rites of passages training, come back as warriors ready to go, ready to take on the mantle. You know what I'm saying? We need to stop walking in circles and have tangibles. It's doable. It's definitely doable.
Absolutely, and we're winning on that note, and because that the power is with the people, and we have to do it for ourselves. Anybody else want the mic? This is a good dialogue.
Well, that's why we say don't agonize, organize. That's the reason why we're here. Because it's going to take us all, but we have to be organized to do it. The reason why imperialism and colonialism are successful or have been successful outside of the gun is that they spend 24 hours thinking of figuring out ways to maintain our position, which is beneath, without having, stripping us of everything. If we spent that same kind of energy and organized, and they're organized.
Yeah, they come up with their 25-year, 40-year plan in advance on how they gonna take stuff away from us, like you said. But the key point is that what you're saying is that we got to have something tangible. We got to be able to not just talk about it, but be about it. And that's why we're here. And that's why some of you in this room gonna join up and unite with us in this movement.
Imagine though, if just 100,000, if just 100,000, if just 100, if just 100,000 Americans give $10 to your organization, how much income is that a month? That's enough for you. If you have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, you can possibly fund that in a year, a 10-year.
Absolutely, we're on point with that. Go ahead, Lisa. We're gonna move this discussion. Very good topic, conversation. These are the necessary conversations that we have to have.
Our next presenter that we'd like to invite up is Ms. Tia Schultz. She works with the Dillard University Center for Racial Justice. Please come up and tell us more about the program and your school. I know that she is one of the organizers that does a lot of outreach. Ms. Tia, I know she was here. Okay. Well,
I think we had moved them up on the agenda, Sister Lisa, because they're not here.
we'll just go on
Yeah.
to the our next presentation will be on Africa. Don't agonize, organize. Sister Zaid.
Uhuru. So yes, we will be going into a presentation of, what is happening right now in the context of Africa and how we can take this don't agonize, organize worldwide and make it a global thing. So first we have presenting our comrade Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa. He is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International and the Director of International Affairs. Luwezi was born in Congo and currently lives in exile in London, where he presides over the African People's Socialist Party organizations on the ground in Africa and throughout Europe. Secretary General Luwezi's regular column in the Burning Spear newspaper analyzes current events and developments on the continent of Africa from an African internationalist perspective. He publishes a bilingual version of the Spear in French and in English for distribution in Africa and Europe. Fluent in 4 languages, Luwezi has traveled, written, and spoken extensively throughout the world and is well known and respected in London, especially among the large Congolese activist community there. Uhuru.
Chair Zai Windisa, thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here with this important meeting. Organize, do not antagonize, do not agonize. I think speaks to our reality. So I'd like to also recognize Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who just put before me here, for providing the leadership to not just to our movements, but to African people around the world with this question colonialism and includes the Black Revolution. I want to extend my greetings to all the comrades. I see who are present here from leaders of Black Back like Zaki Baruti, Lina Davis, and all who are present here. I salute all of you. We are in a very serious time, as you all know. I don't have to say that. On the continent of Africa, there's a lot of things happening. I know people are excited, and they should be excited by what's happening in West Africa, in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, because we have seen French imperialism neutralize, thrown out in that part of Africa. We have seen masses of African people being jubilant, being really excited to the point that throughout West Africa, a lot of people are demanding the same thing to happen in their countries, like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, in a place like that. Although we have not seen a similar move where there has been like a coup or there have been a mass movement to overthrow the local neo-colonial rulers there. But the pressure is really intense. That's why we see, like in Ivory Coast, popular struggles taking place, mass demonstration taking place to prevent the local president there. His name is Alassane Ouattara. He's a French puppet. He's been there since 2010. And before that, he was the prime minister under the president of Houphouët-Boigny, who passed away many decades ago. But the point is, Ouattara He's a French puppet. He's one of the lasting French puppets in the area, and the people want him out. And he wants to go for a fourth mandate. And he has changed the constitution. He has violated the constitution, so he can continue to stay in power. So the struggle there is the way it's been summarized is the struggle to prevent him from taking a fourth mandate. They want him to go. So the more he stays, basically, the more basically the masses are radicalized, demanding for his departure, and that's just what's happening in Ivory Coast. We also have like in Angola, most people here are present. They know Angola in the past used to be presented as a place where the struggle was of a high nature because they struggle against the regime of South Africa, the apartheid regime. The army invaded Angola, and also the Cubans, in solidarity with the struggle in Africa, were present on the ground. So people used to see the Angola government as a progressive government. But since the end of the war, that basically that took place between the government of Angola, led by MPLA, and the party that led the struggle for independence, and UNITA, the party of Savimbi. Uh, since basically the defeat of Savimbi, MPLA has reigned basically supreme, and they have worked the Chinese, they have basically, I would not say develop the country, but the place like Luanda, a lot of construction took place with the participation of the Chinese. So it gave the impression that Angola was developing. But what we have seen in this period, particularly in the last 2 months, mass struggles taking place also in Angola. In fact, in the month of July, there were like 3 days of uprising. So people basically rebelled against the government, but it was a spontaneous struggle after those 3 days. Karma's returned and the government is in place. So I'm giving an example of Angola. I might give an example of Togo and other places, just to say that the willingness to fight is there. The demand for change is there. Being Burkina Faso, being Angola, in all those places, masses of African people want to change. They want the world to be different. But the problem is, since or before and through the struggle for independence in Africa, all the struggles have been led by the African petty bourgeoisie. It doesn't matter if it's the MPLA or if it's the ANC in South Africa, whatever organization that was on the ground leading the struggle of the African people, it was always the struggle of African petty bourgeoisie. And the most advanced element, those who are prepared to break away from that, were killed. But this removal is an example of that. Thomas Sankara is another example. But generally speaking, the African petty bourgeoisie has been in control. Now, with the current situation, like I started with Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, the state of Sahel, we have seen one sector of the African petty bourgeoisie breaking away from their loyalty or collaboration with the French imperialism. They prefer to make an alliance with Russia, the China, and the others, but they don't no longer want to stay under the control of French imperialism. This, as you know, has created a crisis for French imperialism, also for the US as well, because the United States, what's the name of this woman? I think Newland, it was. She went to Niger to negotiate the extension or the guarantee to be given to her that Niger will continue to host US drones in the region, but the response was no, which was a courageous, patriotic thing to do, basically to ask the United States to pack as well from Niger. So you can see that there is the emergence of this anti-colonial leadership in West Africa, which basically have been pushed to that position by the rising struggle of the masses. So just to close here, what I'm trying to say, we see the masses want to struggle. The masses want to continue that anti-colonial struggle. that was defeated in the 1670s, and leadership that's given rise to that in those three countries, Niger, Burkina, and Mali, came from the army, because the army has always been the most organized sector of the country, and also the most organized sector of the African bourgeoisie in general. And they have created that anti-colonial leadership. But the struggle, of course, does not end there, because we in the African People's Socialist Party, we really believe that the mission of the African working class, in fact, which is also the mission of the African nation, is to end this colonial world economy that was born at our expense, as you all know, some 600 years ago. And there is no way we can achieve freedom, happiness, integrity, dignity, you name it, in cohabitation or in collaboration or under domination of this colonial system. So our mission is to end this world colonial world economy that is responsible for all our problems. So this is what we have in West Africa. Now, if I take another area, I'll take for example, Central Africa or the Congo Basin. You take, Congo, Burundi, South Sudan, Cameroon, all those places. If you go to Sudan, you already know there is war going on there. And in that war, you have two sectors of the African people bourgeoisie and fighting for control. But the key element here is that you cannot see what's going on in Sudan in separation of the forces from Emirates, Emirates in the so-called Middle East, who are funding the other sector known as the Rapid Special Forces, who are fighting basically the legal, so I might say, the Sudanese army. And the result is horrific. African children, women are being killed just in a way you can't, just the most despicable way. They just incident. This is happening as we're talking. If you go to Congo, it's the same thing. Only difference is that it's been going on for 30 years. It's just killings, and who are being killed? These are the peasants. These are the workers. And they're not being killed just, because they have to be killed, but they're being killed because that's how exploitation or production of gold, coltan, and other minerals, particularly coltan, is produced like that. It's produced through rape, through genocide. And for the last 30 years, the people want to fight, but the people are fighting. And when they're fighting, for example, in the Congo, they have what they call Wazalendo, which means a Swahili word, which means the patriots. But they're fighting in isolation. They're fighting because in their understanding is that they have to stop the war. They have to stop the Rwanda or Ugandan armies and whoever is collaborating with them, making war in the Congo to produce those minerals. My point here that people want to fight, they want to struggle. But the fundamental question is, how do we catch the African working class leadership to all those struggles? Because the struggles are there. They're on the ground. People are resisting in Sudan, in the Congo, in Mali, in all those places. But the fundamental question is how you bring the African working class leadership in those struggles, because that will open a new era of struggle. That's basically what needs to happen to open a new era in world history. We have to have a struggle, worldwide struggle, everywhere Africans located, struggle led by the African working class. And this basically to continue to complete the struggle of the Black Revolution of the 60s. The African working class has to emerge as a leadership of its own struggle. And there is no small thing. And I wanted just to say a couple of things here. All these wars we have in Africa, generally speaking, U.S. wars. You have the U.S. war at home. Whatever happens to Africans inside the U.S., that's the U.S. war at home. At least in the speech the chairman made, the war on drugs, the massive imprisonment of Africans in the U.S., that's the U.S. war at home. By abroad, when you hear the genocide in the Congo, when you hear the genocide in Sudan, in Darfur, those places, or when you hear the war against Libya, or all these are U.S. war abroad. And in terms of organizing, there are so many things to do. But the key question is the Africans have to resolve the most strategic question is to create the African People's Socialist Party, to create the African organization, the revolutionary organization, the anti-colonial organization led by the African working class, that not only will complete the Black Revolution, but first will struggle everywhere to assume leadership of people's struggle for the redemption of Africa. This needs to happen. And everything we might talk about, the cultural revolution, the African Renaissance, you name it, they are all dependent on our willingness and ability to create that revolution organization. We refer to that as the African Plan, the African Socialist International. That is the sort of mission for every Black person on the planet. We have to achieve that leadership of the struggle for the redemption for all Black people everywhere. But it has to happen under the leadership of African working class. The only class who has no other interest, that accept, that sees the future in maintaining colonialism as a mode of production. Is the only class that requires colonialism has to go as a mode of production. So I've been told my time is up. So these are some of the things I want to say. We have no time to agonize, definitely not. The excitement is there. Africans want to fight, but we have to fight for that leadership of African working class to become the main tendency or the main leadership everywhere. So that's what I wanted to say in this meeting. So I appreciate the invitation and I appreciate participation for everyone who was here. So I say, build the African Socialist International, build the future of the African nation. Yes, we're welcome, right? Thank you.
Uhuru, Secretary General. Yes, the fervor is there. It just needs direction, and that direction has to come from the African working class. So thank you so much for that. If anyone had any questions for Luwezi, you can write them down. If you are tuning in via Zoom, you can utilize the question and answer feature. We will have a question and answer segment that will follow this panel. So next up, we have Jackie Luqman. Jackie Luqman is an anti-imperialist, an anti-capitalist, Pan-African people-centered human rights focused organizer, author, radio show host, and political commentator, tying community level issues to regional, national, and international issues that impact the working class, poor, and oppressed people in the US and abroad. Jackie is a radio show host and a journalist hosting the weekly show Darker Than Blue on WPFW 89.3 FM, a political commentator on the Black Liberation Media YouTube platform. She is the co-coordinator of the Mid-Atlantic region, the co-coordinator of the DC Citywide Alliance, and vice chair of the coordinating committee of the Black Alliance for Peace, which is an international people-centered human rights formation organizing against war, repression, and imperialism by reviving the Black radical peace tradition. Uhuru, Comrade Jackie.
Uhuru, everyone, and thank you so much for having me and the Black Alliance for Peace on this panel and in this coalition. The Black is Back coalition is extremely important to this work of organizing Africans in this part of the diaspora, because when we're talking about organizing around issues relating to the continent, so many of our people here believe that they don't have anything to do with us. Those issues don't have anything to do with us because the imperialists, the settler colonialists, the white supremacist propagandists have convinced too many of us that we are not African. But in the Black Alliance for Peace, we know that we are, and we declare ourselves as such. So the organizing we do related to the struggles on the continent are absolutely connected to the domestic struggles that we experience here. So the emergence of the Black Alliance for Peace and the work that we do is dedicated to reviving the Black radical internationalism and the Black radical peace tradition that used to be very widely accepted among many of our people in this country, but is less so now. And this right here is the moment that we're in is a critical moment in the ongoing struggle against pan-European colonial capitalist white supremacist patriarchy. BAP has been doing this work for 8 years. It seems like much longer, but it's been so much work. But this struggle that we have been engaged in for 8 years, and we have been engaged in this struggle with the Black is Back Coalition for much of that time, has confronted global systems of oppression from militarized policing to imperialist wars. So this revival of this struggle that we are all engaged in lies in the connection to a legacy of resistance that spans from the Haitian Revolution to the Black Power movement and the anti-colonial movements of the 20th century. So BAP's positions have always been pretty controversial, even on the so-called left, whatever it is, in the United States. And that's from our position on Ukraine, highlighting the NATO expansion and Western war propaganda, reflecting a commitment to dismantling imperialism in all forms. But equally vital has been our work exposing the domestic war on African and colonized people, particularly through programs like the 1033 program, which militarizes police forces with surplus military equipment, and our calls to shut down AFRICOM, and the involvement in the connected struggle to stop Cop City, challenge the machinery of state violence domestically and internationally, just as our advocacy for a zone of peace throughout the Americas has reasserted the demands for self-determination free from imperialist interference. So this continued fight for the sovereignty of our people in Haiti, in the Americas, throughout the continent, liberated from foreign-backed coups and predatory NGOs, alongside our growing and more firmly establishment of our opposition to Zionism and all of its manifestations that occur not just in Palestine, but domestically on our streets right now and on the continent, like the IDF training of US police forces, but also the IDF involvement in conflicts in Congo and with Rwanda, underscore the link between global and local oppression. So for BAP, reviving the Black radical internationalist tradition and strengthening our connection with Africa and the struggle on the continent all over the place to continue to fight against colonial, imperialist, neo-colonial oppression advances a vision of collective liberation rooted in anti-imperialism, anti-capitalism, and anti-colonial struggle. We are excited to continue this work, even in the face of so much escalated oppression. And I really appreciate the reading earlier that Chairman Yeshitela gave us of the domestic deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. in 1989, because, people are thinking that what's happening now in D.C. is new. Not only is this not new here in D.C., but we understand that this action that we are seeing in our streets, that we will see expanded to be replicated in other cities. The Trump administration has just announced that they will expand this deployment of federal forces and the National Guard in Chicago and in Baltimore, I believe. we understand that what we are seeing domestically is a replication, is a mirror image of what is carried out internationally. It's what's been done by France and the US and the former colonial powers in the countries on the African continent. We understand that this domestic militarism is a manifestation of the neo-colonial militarism that our relatives on the continent have experienced since the original colonization and carving up of the continent from the 1800s. So BAP activists and organizers are engaged in doing the work of educating our people in this part of the diaspora on the conditions that we face here that mirror the conditions that our people on the continent are struggling against today. So absolutely, we talk about how the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, is an example of the continued a struggle against colonialism that was truncated by the imperialist response to the successful defeat of colonial forces in these African countries in the 60s and the 70s. But we also connect how our struggle against domestic militarism mirrors the struggle of the people on the continent in continuing to fight the exact same forces. And the way we do this is through popular and political education all across the country, raising these issues of the struggles on the continent and throughout the diaspora and among working class, poor, and marginalized people in the global South in general, and explaining to our people in cities where we have a presence that, yes, not only are their struggles linked to ours, but it's the same struggle. For example, in Dallas, we had events with the Young Democratic Socialist of America, organization that we might not always entirely agree with, but they were able to give us or join with us in a space, creating a popular education session, highlighting the history of Black radical student organizing and anti-imperialism in the Black radical tradition, and explaining to people in DSA the importance of the campaign that we have ongoing to end the war on Africans everywhere, to explain what that war is, that the war on drugs is not really a war on drugs, it's a war on Africans. And it's the same war on Africans here that the same imperialist powers are carrying out in Sudan, in the Congo, in the AES. We have opportunities to educate our people in these sessions on the 1033 program, what it means for local policing and how it's connected to militarism on the continent. In Atlanta, there has been an ongoing conversation connecting Stop Cop City to shut down AFRICOM, to free Palestine, to support Sudan. Do you understand? In Baltimore, we have events frequently where our Baltimore contingent is pulling together forces in that besieged city, where the neo-colonial Black misleadership mayor, as is the case in many cities that Black operates, most of the cities that our major cities where we have chapters are run by Black Democrat mayors who are in league with the same white supremacist settler colonial imperialist forces who are oppressing the people on the continent, struggling to defeat neocolonialism and ongoing imperialism. They're the same Black misleadership mayors who want to erect cop cities in their localities and who already deploy the police to oppress and control the people. So the Black Alliance for Peace continues this work of raising up the issues that are emerging in the continent, and not just emerging, because the struggle against imperialism and colonialism and neocolonialism has been going on the continent for centuries. And we have seen through our collaboration with organizations on the continent, getting reports from the people on the ground there, that people on the continent, they're waiting for us. They're waiting for us to move. They're waiting for us to join actively in the struggle with them because they understand that a united, strong Africa is the path to liberation for all of humanity. So the Black Alliance for Peace is committed to continuing that work to not just free Africa, but to free all of us through anti-imperialist struggle and for the liberation of one united Africa under scientific socialism for the liberation of all humanity. Thank you so much, comrades, for this time. Thank you for this coalition. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Jackie, so much. At this time, we will have Paul Pumphrey come on up. Paul Pumphrey has been an organizer and an activist for over 40 years. He is a co-founded and a member of the board of directors for the Friends of the Congo. The Friends of the Congo is a nonprofit advocacy organization based in Washington, D.C. Human rights and grassroots institutions established in 2004 to work to bring about peaceful and lasting change in the Democratic Republic of Congo, formerly known as Zaire. Uhuru, Comrade Paul.
Uhuru. We at Friends of the Congo recognize that Africa will play a major role in the future of this world we live in. We also recognize that the Congo, being in the center of Africa, will play a major role in that struggle as well. And when we look at the Congo, there are a number of things we need to pay attention to. One, it has the second largest rainforest in the world, which means it can play a major role in the future of the ecology of the world we live in. Two, it has the second most powerful river in the world, only second to the Amazon, which means also that one river, if it captured its power with hydroelectric power plants, that one river can produce enough electricity to meet the electric needs of the continent of the Africa for the next 30 years without using one drop of oil, without burning one chunk of coal, and without using any uranium at all. Three, because of the rainfall in the Congo and its fertile land, the Congo has the potential of producing enough food to feed 9 billion people a year. There's only 7 billion people on this earth. So the imperialist powers in the world do not want this potential to come true for the Congo or for Africa. This is one of the reasons why we felt that the struggle going on in the Congo today is so important. But let's take it a step further. The Congo, and the eastern part and the southern part of the Congo, has over $20 trillion worth of minerals needed in the high-tech industry, such as coltan used in electronics, tin that's used in electronics, cobalt that's used in the batteries. It has over 50% of all the coltan in the world, over 50% of all the cobalt in the world. And this is why the imperialist powers of the world has targeted the Congo to destroy it. to make sure that the mineral wealth of the Congo basically only benefits the interests of the imperialist powers. So you have the United States organizing a military action using its client states of Uganda and Rwanda to attack the eastern part of the Congo, so that, in fact, it continues to dominate the control over the coltan and the cobalt and the tin of the Congo, and capture that wealth to benefit the imperialist power in Europe, United States, Canada, and Australia. They also want to make sure that none of those resources make their way into countries such as China or Russia as well. But the main point is they want to make sure that the people of the Congo do not reap those benefits. And one of the things that they try to do is to destroy the agricultural production inside the Congo. When you destroy the agricultural production inside the Congo and destroy the economy of the agricultural production inside the Congo, you drive people from the countryside into the city. And when you drive them into the city, it's much easier to manipulate the elections and put in their puppets to run the country. And when you look at the Congo, the last time the people of the Congo actually chose their head of state was in 1960 when they elected Patrice Lumumba. And since that time, the United States said never again, that it has used its military and economic and political power inside the Congo, as well as its domination of the instruments of the United Nations, to make sure that they decide who's supposed to be the head of state in the Congo and not the people of the Congo. I'm going to give you one simple example. In 1995, I helped organize a delegation of African Americans to go to Haiti. And when we went to Haiti, there was US troops there, Canadian troops there, and French troops there, because again, Haiti, in my opinion, mirrors a lot of what the Congo exhibits today. And that is that Haiti is not a poor country. It's a very rich country with natural resources. And the United States makes it a point, with the help of Canada and France, that Haiti will not benefit from its natural resources. But at any rate, those troops kept stopping our vehicles as we were traveling around in Port-au-Prince. And so members of the delegation said, we want to meet with the US ambassador. So we ended up setting up a meeting at the US Embassy so that the delegates could get the opportunity to talk to the US ambassador. And the US ambassador at the time was a man by the name of William Swing. And when we came into the conference room and started answering questions to the members of the delegation, it became clear to me this guy was CIA. So I asked one question: what's your history in the State Department? And I encourage those listening to me now, Google his name, William Swing. He was in Congo-Brazzaville when Congo-Brazzaville had a coup d'etat. Then he went to Liberia, and guess what? Liberia had a coup d'etat. Then he went to South Africa, right before Nelson Mandela became president. And he got the white regime of South Africa to spend all the money in the budget, so that Mandela wouldn't have money to pay for the military or the police, which would have meant a bloodbath. So now Mandela is forced to deal with international banks, which of course put all kinds of restrictions as to what could be the program of South Africa under Mandela's leadership. Then he leaves there and he goes to Nigeria. And what happens in Nigeria? Another coup d'etat. From Nigeria, he's assigned to Haiti in 1994, when the United States was returning Aristide from a coup d'etat. And that's when I met him in 95. But when I'm back in Haiti in 98, I asked one of my friends, what is this guy up to? Oh, he's not here anymore. He's not. Where is he? He's in the Congo, where there's another attempt of a coup d'etat inside the Congo. But fortunately, in 98, the president of the Congo got Zimbabwe to send its air force, Namibia to send their troops, and Angola to send their troops, and they defeated the troops of Uganda and Rwanda in the central part of the Congo. So his life was spared in 1998. But this William Swing stays on as ambassador. And he retires from the State Department on January 20th, leaving his post in the Congo on January 20th, 2001. And of course, Laurent Kabila, president of the Congo, was killed on January 16th, 2001. So when people question whether or not the United States promote democracy around the world, I ask them to just study the history of William Swing. And you can begin to see the role the U.S. has played in undermining the future of the struggle of African people as we look at the Congo. So my point I'm making is very simple. We need to, as we wage our struggle for democracy and for justice, we need to also begin to organize what is it that Africa needs today? And let's look at it. For example, you find mines all over Africa, but you don't find African people as the geologists that can help those countries develop those minerals for themselves. Instead, they got to depend on China or France or the United States geologists. You look at this, the example of agriculture. And again, you find Europeans, you find other people basically not only dealing with the growth of the plants, but the processing of the plants, such as cocoa or coffee. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. When you look at the cocoa industry, Africa, for the most part, produces the cocoa, but they don't make the chocolate. 22 tons of cocoa roughly is about $47,800. 22 tons of premium chocolate is 2.3 million. So if Africa is not processing their premium chocolate, they're being robbed. The same thing goes for coffee. You see countries like Starbucks making billions of dollars off of coffee. The United States doesn't grow coffee. Europe doesn't grow coffee. Canada doesn't grow coffee. But yet the wealth off of coffee is generated in Europe, Canada, United States, and Australia. So it's a role that we could play here in this country, and encouraging our young people to look at agriculture and actually look at studying it, and then taking that knowledge to places like Africa and places like the Congo, as well as look at how do you process some of those raw materials into finished products, such as cocoa and coffee, where the wealth can stay in Africa, in the Caribbean. Another thing we need to look at is as we begin to wage our struggle and educate our young people about some ways to look at how we can really play a role in the future of African people, is to have us begin to look at how do we begin to process the different raw materials, whether we're talking about cotton, which a lot is grown in Africa today, but very little of it is processed in Africa today. These are ways of how we can build the economy of African countries so that African people can live a decent life and have fulfillment of their lives. So, in coming to a conclusion, as we look at Friends of the Congo and look at what's happening in the Congo, I encourage each and every one of you to go to our website, friendsofthecongo.org, freecongo.org, and see if you can play a role, because there are plenty of roles that we can play in our struggle in helping this mighty country inside of Africa today to take its rightful place in developing a democratic social society, a society that in fact serves the interests of the people of the Congo and the people of Africa, rather than being robbed by Europe, United States, Canada, and Australia. And I thank you very much for the time. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Thank you so much, Comrade Paul. At this time, we will have Comrade Tafarie come on up on the screen, located in Africa. Comrade Tafarie, are you on? Comrade, I'm going to unmute you. Uhuru. Comrade. Oh, we don't have any audio. Let's see.
If you're talking, Comrade Tafarie, we can't hear you. Kabula, can you chat and let him know we can't hear him?
Uhuru,
All right.
Now we can hear.
is it
Much
good
better.
now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, comrades. Thank you, comrades. Firstly, I want to salute this powerful event and congratulate all the organizers of this 17th annual Black is Back coalition. Just reflecting on the work that has been done by this organization over the years. Since its founding, it has been instrumental in terms of rallying African people and anti-colonial African freedom fighters from different organizations to come and present this unified force that is currently striking a blow on imperialism, a dying imperialism. I want to really salute all the speakers that spoke before me. I've learned a lot, and I'm really encouraged to continue fighting, with this optimism that, the system is dying and the oppressed people of the world are rising up. And just looking at the fact that it's people from all over Europe who are based in Europe, based in the US, and I'm over here in occupied Azania. So, and as it has probably been said, I am Tafarie Sindisa Mungeri, and I am the okay. Okay, I don't. Oh, not very clear in terms of the message on the chat, but Uhuru, yes. Yes, comrade. I'm not sure. I can try to, enhance this in this way. Yes. So yes, as I was saying that I am Tafarie Mungeri. I'm the director of organization for the African Socialist International on the African continent. So our organization here, as the APSP, is present in here in occupied Tanzania, South Africa, where I am based. We are there in Zambia, we are there in Namibia, and we also there in Sierra Leone, in West Africa, in Nigeria, in Liberia, in Ghana, and we're working hard to make sure that this organization is established in every single country on the African continent. And I just want to say that this organization, obviously, of course, it was founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, whom I want to really salute, as someone who has been fighting since the 1960s, before a lot of us were born. And we came here and we didn't have to start from scratch because of all you revolutionaries that have been fighting ever since, from the Black Revolution of the 1960s, making sure that the fire never burns out. So I do want to say that in terms of organization here, we function as a single organization. The reason we function as a single organization is because we recognize that African people constitute a nation. We are a nation. We are not a peoples of African descent or anything like that. We are dispersed by imperialism, by colonialism, and we believe that the only way we would be successful in challenging and destroying imperialism is if we recognize ourselves as a nation and we organize in terms of that understanding. And just hearing the comrades speaking about Africom and all this everything that's happening in the Congo and everywhere else, you get to see that the contradictions we experience as African people are based on the colonial mode of production, which is this system that we have to be able to fight together. And the only way we can succeed is if we have an understanding of the nature of the social system. That's why we have to study all the time to understand the nature of the system. We also have to build around a strategy, some tactics and strategies. So recognizing that African people are locked into these different entities that are referred to as countries, even if we may be fighting, using different tactics, like maybe running for elections, maybe in South Africa or other places. We recognize that the goal is not to build some type of South African government or to build the Nigerian government and so forth. Our goal is to build the unified and independent socialist state of Africa, where African people can begin to have access to one another, our own culture, and have access to our wealth, our mineral resources that are being looted on a daily basis here in Africa. Africa is the richest continent in terms of mineral resources. The resources in Congo that are actually at the center of the chaos that is there in terms of the conflicts that the neo-colonialists there are carrying out in service of imperialism, just for them to be able to get a piece of the pie. And Africa is the pie that the world is aiming for. And as it has been said before, that everyone has an Africa plan, except for Africans. China has an Africa plan. Europe has always had an Africa plan. America has an Africa plan, etc. And that African people begin to have an Africa plan. But how that's going to be done effectively with guarantees of, complete victory is if the African working class, those who don't have a stake in this social system, are at the center of and at the helm of this movement for total liberation and independence. So the African working class has to be organized and mobilized. That's why most of our programs are based in the African community, you know, in these townships that are here in South Africa. Like right now, working under the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, we have branches, you know, all over South Africa here in Mpumalanga, where Jacqueline is also in the Val with Comrade Asa and Mulifi and them. I'm also here in Forgeville. We're building a branch, and also we're doing the same, building a branch in Namibia, in Zambia, and everywhere we're building branches. So our goal is to make sure that every single community, you know, in the African continent here, in terms of the Africa region, has a branch of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, has a branch of that, you know, that has revolutionaries. Because if we don't do that, then we are going to continue having this so-called revolution from above, you know, with and the revolution from above, it's a revolution that is led by sellouts. It's a revolution of opportunism. You know, it's a revolution of sacrificing the long-term interests of the masses, of the people, you know, for short-term, you know, petty bourgeois gains. That's how it's always gonna be. If we have, you know, conferences and things like that, it's good because we are able to come here and be able to speak in terms of what we are doing. But then, you know, when we go back, we have to be able to know that we are building on the ground and we are raising the consciousness of the masses of the people. We are allowing the people to take responsibility. You know, if we are in the townships, like what we are doing here in our branch, we have a car wash, and we also have an agricultural project. So if a community member participates in such a program, and then you know, and is leading in the agricultural project, they are doing it with the understanding that we are building for self-determination, self-reliance, and we are building for an independent African economy, as opposed to simply having a project that you know, just functions to just resolve the immediate issue without understanding that everything is interconnected. And the people, when they do that, begin to take responsibility of these programs within the community, then they're actually preparing to govern. Because if he's saying that we are working to build an independent and a socialist state that is under the leadership of the African working class, the class has to be prepared to do that. Otherwise, we're going to have a situation like in 1994 here in South Africa, whereby as soon as the ANC got into office, and then there were the colonial white population here, especially maybe some intellectuals and you know, professionals like skilled people and engineers and whatever. A lot of them you know, began to panic and they wanted to run away. And Mandela had to convince these people that no, you don't have to go anywhere. You need to stay with us. Your interest will not be threatened. That's why right now, white people in South Africa, in terms of the gap or Gini coefficient, whatever, the gap between the colonial white population and the colonized African population in terms of wealth is wider now than it was during apartheid or any other time. It's wider, you know, with the obviously the exception of the African petty bourgeoisie, the middle class, a tiny you know, minority of the African population that has been given some access, but then 72% of the agricultural land is still in the hands of the colonizers in South Africa. And when you look at Zimbabwe, for example, where in the year 2000, you know, African people, they took land from the colonizers and they paid a hefty price for that. You know, we paid the price for that. And right now, every time when we try to address the land question in South Africa, we are threatened, you know, to say that you will end up like Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe has been used as this example to say that don't you dare try to attend to the question of land, because if you do that, we're going to punish you like we did with Zimbabwe. That's why you saw them, the discussion with the South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump, where he had to reassure Donald Trump that we are not really taking the land in South Africa. Is just something that's on paper, but it's not real, and which is the reality. And Donald Trump was just making it to Ramaphosa to say that you should not touch the colonizer population here, which is just 7% of the population owning 72% of agricultural land, and even more land if you consider the mines and other space here in South Africa. So the African working class has to begin to do this. So right now, I just want to say, with the last few minutes that I have, that next week on the 6th of is it next week on the 6th of September, we are going to have the local branch elections, where comrades of the branches are going to be electing the local executive committee. And then the week after, we'll have the pre-convention, the regional pre-convention conferences in Southern Africa as well as in West Africa. And they will make proposals in terms of resolutions and things like that, and make reports in terms of the work we are doing in West Africa and the work we are doing in Southern Africa. And then the week after, on the 20th and 21st of September, international convention of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement. So we are just working towards that and building organization, because without organization, there is no hope for African people. With that, so the Black is Back coalition is important, is crucial. And even in South Africa, we need to have something similar to that, considering that the many organizations that imperialism is creating here, to counter the forward motion of the African colonized masses, towards total liberation. So I want to thank you, Comrade Zayi. I want to thank all the organizers here, the speakers that continue to enlighten us in terms of understanding this, the struggle against imperialism and the, struggle for the total liberation of our people. And I believe firmly that we are winning, and, we will triumph. Uhuru.
Also, is anybody able to check the Q&A in the chat room online? If there are any questions there. Does somebody have a question? Did I hear somebody? Here you are. Anybody have any questions? I have the mic.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charles Davis. I'm local here in New Orleans. I was just wondering, where does MP Down meet in New Orleans? That's my question. I want to, find out. Thank you.
Oh, Charles, we're so happy to have you here with us. Thank you, my brother, for coming out. Dynamic comrade here. I know that this is a lot of discussion. So do we have any questions about what we have heard so far? He already know the answer to that question, because had we had a impedum here, a Black is Back coalition already organized here, I think that's why you hear Charles.
After the
Because
speaking, yes.
yes, you can speak it into existence because we definitely working on it. And that's one of the reasons why we have several people have came from all over. You know, we got people here from New York, Washington, D.C. Can't think of all the other places. Chicago. We got people here from all over that have came to help us here organize, because it has been some strongholds here, but we're breaking through and we're winning, and we're definitely going to have that presence known here. Especially, I feel that Louisiana is the balling point for what we're talking about here today. And this is just the beginning. So I'm just so happy and appreciate everyone that's here. We got W.C. Johnson back here. You want to answer that question too? You want to elaborate on that question, W.C., why it's so important that we bring this presence in here to Louisiana, especially New Orleans?
Yeah, because we're experiencing a time in history that is repeating itself. And to know history and then to understand that it's repeating itself puts us on notice that we're next. There's a lot going on that people, Black people, especially here in New Orleans, are taking for granted. And if we do not understand what is happening, we will get swept under the rug as it has happened time and time ago. The problem that I see is that we are not in the streets with the people, getting them to understand what is getting ready to happen to them. They have been blinded to what is going on, and they believe that the imperialism that has allowed them to believe that they have made some strides and equality and justice were just that. They are nightmares. I think Louisiana is the dream state, and its dream is totally a nightmare. We have Blacks in positions that could make significant changes in our community.
Say that. Wow.
But they act as if we are deaf, dumb, and blind, which we are, because we continue to support them, we continue to put them back in office, and we continue to allow them to do the things that they do to us to keep us enslaved. All of these so-called Black organizations that are nationally known now have to bear the brunt of all of these so-called advancements that we supposedly made from the 60s until now are now being washed away.
Yep.
So what have they been doing, and why are they allowing it to happen? No one's putting any pressure on them because no one is woke. And until we wake up, we're going to stay the enslaved population that we are and have been for 500 years in this country.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. But my brother, I'm gonna keep on passing this mic.
Thank you, thank you. To further elaborate on what you just said, sir, is it on? Well, you know, if you know New Orleans never have been a place for educating young people. We have Dillard, we have Xavier, we have UNO, we have SUNO, folks surrounding colleges, but we do not have high schools, elementaries, and so forth, where they can come up through and then expand out. If you notice, it's got more schools closed here in New Orleans than a little bit. You know, and the thing be is they, you know, I don't think they're afraid. I think that because there's not enough information that's constantly to be put out there so that they can understand what's going on, you can't help but be asleep, deaf, dumb, and blind. Because, as you said, we have politicians that's in place that could do something about these things.
Oh.
So who are they working for? They're not working for the people. And that's only, they want to rub elbows and all this other stuff. In fact, I can name quite a few of them. And the thing is, because I am glad in Peter, LUI, BIB, Black is Back Coalition, and all these other organizations is focusing on New Orleans because, if, like you said, if you don't wake these people up, slavery will start back again in the Deep South, where the ships used to come here. The slaves used to come here. They used to dock. I've learned that slavery came through New Orleans, one of the biggest ports in the world once upon a time.
Yeah.
So history, it looks like it's trying to repeat itself, but they're doing it in a different way.
Thank you so much. I just want to say we have 5 more minutes for this segment, and we have 2 questions online. But I just want to say one thing I want to remind people of, because I know it's been rough. I know the 400 years ain't been easy, but we can't lose what we did do. And in Louisiana, in New Orleans. Use your mic so they can hear it. Don't forget the time. Right. In New Orleans, they had one of the biggest insurrections, period. In 1811, the German coast, one of the biggest ones ever. And then, I know. And then we had the Civil War, in which we rose up and we did that. So I just want to say that. Oh, I know. I'm keeping track of the time. I see them. I'm gonna call them. I see them. But thank you. So next, I'm gonna call Zaki Barudi and then Jackie Luqman.
Okay, I have a comment and a question. First of all, the speaker inspired me even greater to continue the battle, and they took me back to actually one of our newspapers published in 1994, and the theme was, as the theme we have today, organize, don't agonize, and that was the major theme of the 7th Pan-African Congress that was held in Kampala, Uganda, and over 1,000 people were in attendance. So my question is, and this is 31 years later, and at that point I was just only 47, and you'd be thinking the revolution is right around the corner. My question is the importance of protracted struggle as far as putting an end to the oppression, to creating a United States of Africa, a united Africa that's militarily, as I see it, first, to keep the colonizers from coming back in, and under scientific socialism. The importance of protracted struggle, if they would like to address that. And again, I really have been inspired by the presentations. And so if anybody would like to respond to that, I appreciate that. I'm talking about the presenters.
Also, I just want to say before we do that, if we can just take Jackie Luqman's question, and then the presenters can maybe respond to both of them. So,
piece that actually it's not a question; it's actually a response to what the brother said and your question, Zaki. We can't leave the education of our people on why we need to fight, who we are fighting, what they're doing, what they've done to us. We can't leave that to the state. We cannot trust the state to educate our people on our history. So we cannot expect our people to be educated on the system that is oppressing them. We can't leave that to the institutions in that system, because they have never told the truth about what they've done to our people. This is why the political education aspect of the work that we do is incredibly important, because there has not been a revolution that has ever happened that has been successful that did not include a pretty significant effort and a pretty long period of time that the people were educated. The Cuban Revolution, people were educated for 10 years in the mountains. They were taught to read, they were explained what the oppression was, who the oppression was, why they were being oppressed, and what needed to be done. Same with the Haitian Revolution, shorter period of time, but there was a period of educating the people on their conditions and organizing the people on how they fight their conditions. Educating our people is an aspect of organization that we cannot leave to the oppressors and that we cannot leave out of our organizational efforts. And the point about protracted struggle, when we win, we are going to have to defend what we win. And this is, I think, where we may have been not as clear on or didn't do as good a job on, but I think we were also kept from defending the gains we won by the response of the state. So we can look at successful revolutions and the way countries are defending their revolutions today. We can look at the way Venezuela is responding to the continued repression against it of the United States. We can look at the example of the AES and see how the people are responding to defend the to defend the alliance. We can look at the way Cuba is continuing to defend its revolution, and we can look at those examples and at least understand that winning and defeating imperialism and ending this oppression, that is not going to be the end of struggle. Protracted struggle in a revolution means that you are always defending what you won, because the people that you won it from, they are not going to sit back and say, okay, we lost our power in a fair fight. They will continue to try to take back what we want from them. So we are going to continue to we're going to have to continue to maintain our education, our political and popular education, to maintain our efforts at organization, to expand our organization, even after we win, so that we can defend what we've won. It's protracted struggle means exactly that. It never ends.
Uhuru, thank you so much. We're at our time for this particular segment, but we will have other Q&A and people can continue to ask these kind of questions. Well, I can't check the chat. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so important that, you know, we're here in Louisiana for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we chose to have our 17th annual conference here in the state of Louisiana for a reason, especially the city of New Orleans. Because this is the boiling point. There's a lot of things that's happening that so goes this city, especially New Orleans, this state, Louisiana, so goes the world. So we have to say, we're here not to agonize, we're here to
Organize.
right here, right now. So, you know, and that's the reason why this room should be packed and everybody should be involved and engaged in this conversation. This discussion is very necessary that we have it the way that we have it right now, because we cannot stay the same. We refuse to stay the same. And like she said, when we win, we're going to have to defend that which we have won. And it's going to take all of us.
That's right, Uhuru. Now we are going to have a brief call for resources and membership. People can join during this period as well. Do we have the slide, the presentation for that?
Uhuru, Comrade Lisa, 1 second. I think we were going to have some other statements brought in. if Kabula.
I can't.
They can see it up there.
You guys are talking about time.
Okay. I see Jackie's leaving. Did you get all right. We're gonna keep going, but I think I really want to appreciate the discussion. And yeah, the room should be packed. And so what I'm gonna suggest is that while everybody, after we do this and we go to lunch, you text somebody that you know that should be here, that's not here, and get them here, because we're going to have a should have a pretty lively discussion for the second half of the program. We're trying to get the chairman on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we put up the yeah, the
Slideshow. 5:35.
if we could put up the the membership call for resources. This is the segment where we want to make it rain, but of course, the most important thing that any organization can ever have is people. People. Our pledge goal for today is $1,000. And of course, if anybody wants to pledge that right now, then this segment can be very short. And just to say that if you want to pledge, it doesn't mean that you have to pay everything up front. Let's say if you want to pledge something, you might want to say, okay, I can do $50 a month or something like that if you want to pledge a certain amount, or $10 a month, you know, up until you pay that amount. So that's just something to think about. Next slide. Do we have the next slide? Do we have, and if you're online, definitely you can pledge online as well if you're in the Zoom room, and we'll be we will be monitoring that. And you can make yes. All right. Okay, Sister Belinda, don't you leave. You come up here. This is what you do. This is what you do. If you want to make a pledge, you can use Cash App, CIBCOA. That's the Cash App pad. Or you can make a check payable to Karen Kenge Mayali to 410 to VI Blackwood Back Coalition, 4101 West Borenton Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. Memo Blackwood Back Coalition. Yes, who we got?
Yes.
What we got? Who we got here? Which one became a member?
Uhuru, we have $100 coming in from Leo.
Yes, and we
Where
also
are we
have.
at?
Are we announcing now, Secretary Zayi?
Uhuru, yes.
Say that we have a $100 donation from Mr. Gary Williams that's in the room right now.
Oh, we just got a membership too.
Yes.
We trying when you get older.
They say they
even when you wear glasses, it don't help when you get older.
Individual membership from
Kwaku. Kawaku Koshindana. Kawaku Koshindana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. All right.
Okay, I'll give that.
Uhuru, we also have $20 coming in from MQ. So keep it coming in. We've got $780 left to raise. Like it was said earlier, let's get some people to the room. Let's get some people online. Share this discussion far and wide. We are trying to build a power base. trying to be self-determining people. And we had somebody earlier that said, you know, if we just had a couple thousand people give $20 or give $50 here, we could really succeed in what we're trying to do here. So don't be shy. We have individual memberships for $25. You can also get an organizational membership, $200 if international, $150 national, and then $50 for state, local, and small provinces.
Uh-oh, I feel my pocketbook trying to talk to me. My pocket.
You know, I wanna say this,
I'm gonna
Lisa,
pledge
while we were.
$25.
I know that we're screaming live and there's a lot of people that are tuning in and watching. The most powerful thing of what we're doing right now, it should not take us a long time to understand and realize that we have to organize, and it takes resources in order for us to do that. We have to come together, marry our money, our resources, so that we can be a force to be reckoned with. The power is with the people. So don't hold back, people. This is a process that we want to go ahead so we can get to some more of this very impactful information, powerful information about why we're not agonizing. We are organizing. We are marrying our money and coming together to be a strong force to be reckoned with. And that's what it's all about. So we're gonna move, go right ahead and talk about, Lisa, I think that's how people can give, one more time.
Right, again, if you want to give, Cash App, $BIBCOA, or you can make checks payable to the Black is Back Coalition, and you can mail it to 4101 West Florissant Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63115, care of Ikenge Mayele, and memo Black is Back Coalition, Black is Back Coalition in your memo.
And I want to say this, the Black is Back Coalition is so powerful, people. I know when I started a grassroots organization, you know, I was a part of all of those national known organizations. You know, I realized at one point in time they had their foot on my neck, and I can name some of them. You know, some of y'all know some of them, the NAN and the N, you know, all these different, you know what I'm talking about. You know, but the truth of the matter is, it was a lot of grant chasing organizations, fundraising, or you know, have a party here, a party there, and then after all of that was said and done, the work was still, you know, slapping us in the face. You know, so I got fed up with that foolishness. I refuse to be a grant-chasing organization, a fundraising organization. You raising money, and then we look around, we don't see nothing nobody done done. You know, 400, you've been around here 400 years or 150 years, one of them 150 years. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But anyhow, the truth of the matter is that we are the national political agenda, our 19-point agenda for self-determination. We're going to do this ourselves. And that's what it's all about, people. We got to stop running. I'm going to say it just like this. Sometimes we just have to just tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the hard, cold truth. We're going to stop going looking for help in all the wrong places, when we know for a fact they never intended to help us in the first place. So we have to do it ourselves. And I heard somebody say earlier, if it ain't but $10 here, $2 there, but all of us united together, with all of us united together, I guarantee you, we can do whatever we want to do, and we will refuse to be denied. So that's what it's all about. And everybody can do something, no matter what your education is. You know, they won't talk, they're going to dumb us down anyway. No matter how, you know, many letters you got in front of your name, you know, how high and how low, and, you know, It don't matter. Everybody can do something. If you don't do nothing but sweep the broom or pick up the trash, you could do something. So we are here united together, a force to be reckoned with, and ain't no stopping us. How about that?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And as Sister Belinda Parker was saying, we all have something that we can contribute. All of us have something. All of us have some skill. We might not even think it's useful, but it is. When we come together, we can do anything, but we must come together. We have to come together under revolutionary, radical politics. Political ideology is important. When you look at today that so many of us are, they got us thinking that, oh, it's something to really choose from. Two genocidal, warmongering parties. And we act like that's something to choose from, touting the benefit of one over the other, bombing the continent of Africa, bombing Black and brown people all over the world. That ain't no way to live. That ain't nothing to choose from. We should not want anything to do with any party like that. Sister Kanga, just checking on scheduling. I know we're at the time for this, and we'll come back with the count. Sister Zai said she donates $10. I donate $25.
Okay, we got 745 left to go.
Oh, is the chairman on the line? Hello?
Uhuru.
Uhuru! We were waiting for this.
Uhuru, comrades. I'm
Uhuru!
really self-critical for not being able to participate fully in this incredibly significant conference that our coalition is sponsoring. And some of you may know that I've just had a relatively serious health setback. I'm in a state of recovery, generally speaking, except even in the middle of the recovery, my immune system was so compromised that I came down with a case of COVID. I'm just giving that as an explanation for not being there, because I would not have anyone think that my absence has anything to do with disrespect for this conference and the significance of the conference itself. I think that I've only been able to catch some of what has been spoken of up to now. And I do think it's important. I want to say, first of all, that this discussion about protracted struggle is really important. It's something that we believe in for a very long time. This conference on today is representative of the fact that the African People's Socialist Party believes in protracted struggle. It represents, this conference represents years and years of work and struggle that we've been involved in. Struggle that the African People's Socialist Party has been involved in for more than 40 years now. And that is to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s, a revolutionary movement that was militarily defeated by assassinations, slander, all kinds of terror waged against our community. I don't know if it happened, if it was shared with you, but in 1989, I wrote a document that spoke to how the US government shut down Washington, D.C., did a real coup in Washington, D.C. against the local government. I mentioned this essentially because there's a lot of anxiety that's been experienced by the fact that the regime of Donald Trump put National Guards into Washington, D.C., and actually, having done so, made several arrests of people there. But in 1989, the government made an action that made Trump's move look amateurish in comparison. Virtually every kind of a military organization, FBI, CIA, DEA, virtually every military force that's accessible, available, was deployed to Washington, D.C. The government of Marion Barry, which was not something that we find laudatory, was shut down. And the thing is, however it was, that government, it was elected by African people, and the government nullified that election. And even the park police, virtually every police agency that you can think of was deployed in Washington, D.C. I think it's important to recognize that, because otherwise you can stay on a perennial treadmill where you can be active and run for a long period of time, and you can even run in a protracted fashion and still not find yourself getting anywhere. So our objective has to be to get somewhere. It has to be more than just change. It has to be development. It has to be more than simply growth. It has to be development. You can have organizing and mobilization that is designed to get 1,000 people, and you can win 1,000 people and 2,000 people to come out and fight for the right to come into the system. And if you get 10,000 people, some people will really recognize that as progress. But what we're saying is that's not necessarily progress. The thing is not growth as such, because as we have said many times before, a caterpillar can grow. It can become move from a small caterpillar to a big caterpillar, but that's not development. When the caterpillar turns into the butterfly, that's development, and that's what we're looking for. Because you can find various forms of oppression where it is less odious at sometimes than it is at others, and people can be lulled into an assumption that it is progress, but it's not progress. The fact is that we lost our freedom. We didn't lose civil rights. We lost complete control of our freedom. We lost self-determination. And self-determination is not something that was granted by the end of slavery, as is characterized. The enslaved African people was an example of the loss of self-determination, the ability to determine our own future. And so after that was over, so-called Emancipation Proclamation, we still did not have control of our lives, self-determination. And after that was over with Jim Crow, we still didn't have self-determination. And with civil rights, we still didn't have self-determination. Self-determination is achieved when we're in control of our own future. And that is different from from begging and fighting to be a part of the system that has enslaved us. And that's much of what has happened for a long period of time. And in the last critical moment of our struggle, in the 1960s with the assassinations of Malcolm and Martin and Fred Hampton and members of the Black Panther Party, after our movement had achieved so much clarity and was fighting against colonialism. After that happened, then we saw a government transform with the help of sectors of our own community, what the struggle was all about. So at one time, it was a struggle against colonialism. That's why they killed Malcolm. That's why they killed Panthers, etc. But because the struggle against colonialism is different from this concept of fighting against racism. Fighting against racism is not a fight to take control of our own lives, our own destiny as a people. And that's exactly what the struggle has to be about. I just want to say this, because I know this is laborious, listening to me and even saying what I'm saying now for me is rather laborious. But I just want to say that when we talk about protracted struggle, it has meant different things at different times in history and to different social forces who were involved in making revolution. There was a time when the most progressive concept of protracted struggle was based on the assumption that we were dealing with a capitalist mode of production. And that was absolutely wrong. When we look at the fact that the mode of production we were dealing with and have been dealing with for the longest period of time, perhaps almost 600 years, was a colonial mode of production. Whether for the first time in human history, there was a common economy that linked the world together has never been before. There never had been a common economy, that linked the entire world together before the capture and enslavement of African people, the dispersal of African people around the world, etc. This is what the fight has to be about. Recognizing when people recognize so-called protracted struggle during what they thought was the communist, was the capitalist mode of production, they assumed that they had to destroy that mode of production, even if they don't talk about it today. That's what Lenin meant. That's what Mao meant. That's what Fidel and Che were talking about when they talked about a mode of production, the struggle, protracted struggle. It was to get rid of a common mode of production, which was understood to be capitalist. But they were wrong. It's a colonial mode of production upon which the capitalist mode of production requires for its existence. It was colonialism that gave birth to what we know as capitalism, that gave birth to Europe, that gave birth to the resources that were necessary. And this is relatively easy to discover if we have the ability to get around the false and erroneous concepts that we've lived off for some time now. So I wanted to say that. And so protracted struggle for us has to mean a struggle to get rid of the colonial mode of production. It has to mean more than simply getting better raises, and has to mean more than simply getting rid of Trump or the current kind of regime that dominates us today. The whole world economy is parasitic. The entire world economy is a parasitic world economy. And African people function primarily as a host in this parasitic economy. And the colonizers, the traditional historical European colonizers, white people, function as the parasite in this relationship. And we are going to have to free ourselves from this parasitic relationship for there to be happiness for our people, a return of the resources stolen from us, and happiness for the people on the planet Earth. I appreciate your patience and listening to what I've had to say up to now. And I'm really apologetic for not being able to be there with you so that there would be time to elaborate on much of this. But there's one world economy. There's not a lot of them. There's one world economy. And we suffer in Palestine. We suffer in Louisiana and various places around the world. And again, I appreciate it. Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru, Chairman. Uhuru, woo, woo, woo. Uhuru, Uhuru. Oh, you can't. Uhuru, everyone. Now we will break for lunch. That's an hour that we have for lunch, so it's 1:05. So everybody, please be back at 2:05. Right. So you got food for the mind. Now lunch is in the cafeteria. Yeah. That's better since you know.
Okay. All right, we're going to break for lunch. We're going to head. Y'all can just come with me. We're going to head to the cafeteria, have lunch, and then we'll head back to continue on with the conference. Okay. It's $12.99, all you can eat. Okay. Yeah, it's warmer than this. This is the coldest room. Thank you. Well, we needed technology. We could, but we need the technology if we have further Zoom. Yeah.
So see, you feed your soul, you feed your mind and your body. Right, people, we will be back in 1 hour. So it's 1:06 Central Standard Time. So we'll be back in 1 hour. So if it's Eastern Standard Time, that's 2:06. And I can't calculate for our Pacific Standard Time, but we'll be back in 1 hour. Uhuru.